Michael Johnson in just a moment, but if you've been with us throughout the whole evening, you will know the reason why Isaac Makwala did not start that race was because he was judged too ill to race by the IAAF, and we had representatives from the Botswana Athletics Federation here earlier on who were telling us that they didn't feel that they had been given the full medical information at the time. They told us all about how Isaac was examined and they weren't there with him, and we only until this point have had their side of that story. Well, Pam Venning has come up to the studio, who is the chief head of medical services at the IAAF. Pam, thank you for joining us. We've read the statements that you've put out throughout the evening, and they've kind of dripped through. The couple of questions that really spring to mind, that things that we heard from the medical team from the Botswanans. First of all, as far as you're aware, was anybody involved in that medical examination from the Botswanan Federation? Was anybody in the room?
No, because the athlete actually came into the medical centre of his own accord and was seen by one of our volunteer doctors and examined. When he was told he had a gastrointestinal disease, he tried to leave, but one of my other senior members of the staff brought him back in because we have an outbreak of gastroenteritis in the hotels, and it is highly infectious.
So when you say he was told he had that, which medical examinations have been conducted to ascertain that?
He'd taken a history, examined him, pulse, respiratory, and taken a history, and the history is very clear from this gentleman that he had similar symptoms to all the other athletes that have also been classed as having this gastrointestinal disease.
Because the medical team from the Botswana Federation said that the report they received said that his heart rate was normal, they said that his temperature was normal, and that the only thing that had happened to him was he was sick once, and for them that didn't seem to be enough to determine that it was norovirus.
That is not the history we have. He'd been vomiting from 10 p.m. the evening before, and he had vomited at 2 o'clock that afternoon. So that is a history he gave to our doctor. That's what we wrote down in the records. So as far as we were concerned, he is staying in the same hotel, has the same symptoms as the other athletes that have also been quarantined from mixing with other people.
And you didn't take any bloods or any other samples?
Because we already had a confirmation from the Public Health Laboratory in Cambridge as to what the organism was, and my advice from Public Health England was we didn't need to take any more examples because the symptoms are the same, the length of the vomiting and other aspects are the same, so we didn't need to take any other specimens.
We've had a lot of people on social media, athletes, for example, Di Green, who competed in Delhi in the Commonwealth Games, who said he was very sick in the build-up to his race. Nobody stopped him racing. We've heard swimmers saying the same thing. Is this a protocol that you're just invoking now, or is it something that you've done at every...
It's not a protocol we're invoking. We're following the guidance from Public Health England. As soon as I knew we had a high number of athletes with this vomiting, I contacted Public Health England. And
so
they
what
gave
was
us
your motivation then to stop him racing? Was it to stop the spread in the stadium?
Yes, exactly. My responsibility is to ensure the health care of all the athletes here, and it's a very infectious and very virulent disease.
So how are you going to police this then? Because obviously one of his teammates was in that race tonight.
Yes, so we ask, when we identify an athlete with symptoms, we isolate them into their own room. We ask them to stay there for 48 hours, and we also ensure that the rest of the team know. We called all the team leaders together on Sunday and went through the protocol from Public Health England, and we are meeting some more doctors tomorrow morning and the team leaders to go through the same process.
Has he been provided his own separate room, and is he quarantined in the hotel? Because the report that we've gotten was that he was not put in another room. He still has the same roommate, and he's still in the same room he was in prior to all of this.
As far as we are aware, he was in his own room, because we would have checked. We would have sent somebody to check that he was in his own room, and the hotel has been identifying extra rooms for people to stay in if their roommate has got the condition.
He was at the track and he was warming up ahead of that 200, and he said he felt okay. He spoke to one of our reporters this morning and he said he was ready to race. His doctors in the team said he was ready to race. Can you understand why?
Yes, I totally understand, and we feel very sorry for the athletes that have to be withdrawn from competition, but the issue is we have a responsibility to all the athletes, and if we allowed them all to sit by, the quorum is a very tight, close community, and we need to make sure that all the athletes are protected as well.
Can I just ask, did you contact other athletes, other federations, to ask them whether they would mind him actually competing in the state that he's been medically diagnosed in? Because if they came back and said, actually, we have no problem.
All the teams that have had athletes who have been isolated have all been very cooperative and actually helped us apply the interventions that we've been advised to do. So we've actually, this is the first time we've had a challenge.
It's not a legally binding recommendation, obviously. Public Health England recommend that. So,
but it's recommended on very tried and tested experience of this virus.
But if he has his own medical team and they're responsible for him and they say we are happy that he can compete for his health's sake, is there not a restraint of trade issue here that you're stopping him doing something? Because there's no medical proof that it was norovirus, is there? You're working on the assumption that it was norovirus.
Yes, but it's commonality, isn't it? There are a number of athletes in that hotel with the same symptoms, and we have positive laboratory results from people staying in their hotel with the same symptoms. Well, you can't. It takes 48 hours or 36 hours for the results to come back. And if you
wait, do you have those tests now that you can give us in 36 hours?
The first test went in on the 4th of August.
No, his test.
No, we were advised that we didn't need to take any more tests by Public Health England because we had identified the organism that was causing the virus. So
his temperature was taken and his temperature was normal?
Yes. People have different varieties of presentations. You can have very severe diarrhea. We have an athlete today who's actually quite sick from these symptoms, but somebody else may just vomit once or twice. Some people have diarrhea, some people have a temperature, and some people don't.
But we've sort of been looking at this in isolation, but putting it in the context of where we are, who the athlete is, and what's going on at the time. At the end of the day, there was a decision made. I understand that public health made a recommendation, but the IAAF has the authority to make the decision and has its own protocols. What was considered in making this decision, and was it ever a point where there was any any sympathy or empathy for the athlete, or was there ever any consideration for allowing the athlete to go ahead and compete?
We have great sympathy for the athletes that can't compete because they've contracted this infection, but the fact of the matter is we're responsible for all the athletes' health, and they would have put all the athletes at risk.
Sorry, Michael, I just want to do one case which Neil Eckhart, who collapsed but was allowed to compete in the triple jump. On what basis does that collapse? Is that overridden by being sick once?
I can't comment on that. He may have collapsed for many other reasons, and I haven't heard about this person.
She was a German.
I haven't heard about this person.
But with Makwala's symptoms as well, couldn't they be attributed to many other reasons as opposed to making the assumption that it is norovirus?
I can't comment on this case because I don't know about it. So
no, I'm talking about Makwala.
No, Makwala.
Oh, Makwala. It's very difficult, isn't it? He presented with the same symptoms, vomiting for nearly 18 hours in the hotel, which is exactly what other athletes have done, including those of which we have identified viral identification from the public health laboratory. So you have to use the assumption that anybody who's vomiting for that period of time in that situation where the infection is got a hold, they've got the same symptoms. So we protect everybody and put in an intervention.
I must just tell you what a medical representative from the Botswanan team said, that when they saw the report, Isaac said that he'd never said that he was sick at 10 o'clock the night before, and that he'd only been sick once that day, and that at 10 o'clock the night before he was having treatment, and there's photographic evidence he was having treatment at 10 o'clock the night before. I have to tell you that because that's what they said.
Fine. But I have to stand by my doctor, who's a qualified doctor, who would not. He wrote down what he assessed from the patient's history.
I guess the thing that the IAAF is creating here is precedent, and across this championship, every athlete who is sick is going to have to be pulled from their races if it's within the 48 hours. And
every athlete who presents with the symptoms that we see related to this particular virus.
But are they going to tell you now?
Yeah, it's
I don't know. We can only expect that we have, at the moment, had great cooperation from all the teams they've had presented with athletes who are sick.
The one thing, though, that, beyond all of that is the communication, and what we have understood from the Botswana team and what we've received ourselves. I mean, in trying to report to the public, the situation with Isaac Makwala in the 400 meters, we've had very little information ourselves. They've reported that they've had very little information. That information has come in very late. Was there any consideration by the IAAF and your team in terms of the communication with the athletes? Because as you probably know, Isaac Makwala showed up here tonight still trying to get into this competition and was turned away.
We have communicated with all the teams, and we're communicating again with the teams tomorrow. I was phoned immediately. He was seen in the medical room. I then was with Stefan Berman, the IAAF medical delegate, and we then Stefan proceeded to contact the team leader to withdraw him from competition.
At that point, could you not have perhaps checked him again to just see if it was conclusive that he was unwell to run? Because surely at that point he believes in his heart that he's ready.
Many of the athletes have very acute symptoms.
Well, he does.
And he described to our doctor, and the doctor has noted in the notes that he started vomiting at 10 p.m. the night before, and he had vomited at 2 o'clock that afternoon. I have to believe what the doctor has written in his notes. He's a professional clinical clinician. So we have to take account of what he's written in the notes.
So ultimately it's your decision.
It was not my decision. The decision to withdraw is purely the IAAF. Our decision is to maintain the healthcare of the athletes and the group of athletes we have here. That is what I'm here to do, not to make decisions about withdrawal. I can provide advice from Public Health England, and that's our very experienced, highly qualified people who deal with these situations all the time, particularly in London and major cities in this country.
And I appreciate you coming up to give that, that side of the situation, and it's understandable that you don't want disease to spread. What is apparent, though, is a terrible level of communication that's gone on here in terms of getting that message across, and, an athlete who feels completely shattered, heartbroken.
Yes, I understand that, but you would risk many, many more athletes not competing as well. The worst case scenario is massive people dropping out, staff being affected.
I know, I understand that. I'm
You
saying
have
is from when this started this morning, I think the communication perhaps could have been better and would have helped both sides to come out of this with a little bit more clarity and certainty.
Yeah, and I understand that the health of all the other athletes has to be protected as well. But at some point, could not just a simple blood test have been done to show reactive proteins or something? Would he be controlled as part of the blood passport? That could be looked at?
No, it doesn't tell you the virus. You don't take blood for this. You have to take other samples. And you send them to a specific laboratory in Cambridge where they're assessed, and it takes 36 to 48 hours. So the first test went in on Friday, and I got the results on Sunday morning.
No, but I'm just thinking for him, to help him psychologically deal with it. If you are actually confronted with it in black and white, then is it a little bit easier for him to deal with that? Because now he's just thinking, what if?
Also, it would be a lot easier for the IAAF, wouldn't it, if in 36 hours you could say, look, we told you so. This is what, he would have.
But in the meantime, he would have competed. He could possibly have affected a lot of other athletes.
No, we're saying, if he was, I think we're on the communication now and the lack of communication with the athlete, which has caused all of this drama tonight and caused him a great deal of pain and anguish, not just not being able to run, but having not been explained why. He is extremely confused at this point and frustrated because he has not been communicated to as to why the decision that has been made to keep him from running.
My role is not to make that decision. My role is to protect the rest of the athletes as the head of healthcare. The issue was we were very in touch with the team leader as soon as we could. After we saw him at 5:30, he was in the core room at 6:30. We had great difficulty in contacting the right people at the right time because of the short period of time we had.
Pam, thank you very much. We do appreciate you coming up and explaining this from the IAAF's position. And it's fair to say, isn't it, that nobody really ends the day, Isaac Makwala or the medical team from the IAAF, feeling that everybody is happy with this decision. And certainly tonight, that final felt a little bit different, Michael. It felt because of that lane being empty.
Absolutely.
And it felt like when Wade van Niekerk crossed the line, he didn't look as triumphant and joyous as I was expecting him to look. Whether he felt he didn't get that contest that he was looking for, I'm not sure.
Well, we talked about Isaac Makwala will always have the what if. I mean, we have the what if, and everyone will have that what if he was in that race.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks again, Pam. Really appreciate it. Let's have a quick look then at the